All right, it's time. So we are going to jump into chapter 7. I'm flipping through chapter 6 some to kind of give us an idea of where we left off. I don't know if you remember, but some new people came to the village, and so they're just talking about how the new people that entered the village just recently, have things that are unique about them, kind of like how Seer has the name Seer, but he's blind. And then we remember that Maddie is living with Seer, and so they have a lot of conversation and they talk about things because Seer is more wise than Maddie is at this time. And it is also time for this market trade that they're all pretty curious about because there's something fishy going on in the town. It appears that there's been some trading that's gone on. I think you guys remember the gaming machine that Maddie's friend has, and he's like, how in the world did you get one of these? Because they're, considered a luxury. So, anyway, it's determined that this gaming machine came from the family making a trade of some sort, but we don't know what they've traded yet, so that's kind of the mystery. But at this trading mart is when some of these things go down. So Maddie has decided that he's going to go. And Seer is like, listen, Maddie, if you do go to the trade mart, you need to be really careful because, some sneaky stuff can go down. And Maddie's like, well, I don't know what I would trade anyway because I don't really have anything. I have a fishing pole. I have, a couple things like that are important to him, but some other people might not see much value there. So, Seer has advised Maddie, he's like, all right, if you go, be careful, and you probably shouldn't make any trades. Just go watch and check it out. So, we'll see if he decides to do that and take Seer's advice or not. The last line of chapter 6 says, tonight he was only going to watch. He had promised Seer that he was going to do that. But I think something's up. So let's see. I'm going to read chapter 7 from the beginning to the end. Does that mean that you have to listen to it all right now? No, you do not. But if you choose to, that's totally fine. The quiz will not be uploaded until Friday. Friday is going to be the day for all of your comprehension quizzes. So you can listen to chapter 7 today, you can listen to it tomorrow, you can listen to it Thursday, or just wait till Friday. But I am uploading it today so you can space it out. All right, chapter 7. It was early evening, just past supper, and others were hurrying, as Maddie was, along the lane to the place where Trade Mart was held. He nodded to neighbors as he passed them, and waved to some he saw further along. People nodded back or waved in reply, but there was none of the light-hearted banter that was ordinarily part of village. There was an intenseness to everyone, an odd seriousness, and a sense of worry, unusual in village, pervaded the atmosphere. So this is saying that, usually everyone's very friendly and light, but there's something going on and people aren't acting like themselves. So he says, no wonder Seer didn't want me to come, Maddie thought as he approached. It doesn't feel right. He could hear the noise, a murmur, people whispering to each other. It's not at all like market day, with its sounds of laughter, conversation, commerce, good-natured bargaining, the squealing of pigs, the motherly cluck of hens with their cheeping broods. Tonight it was simply a low hum, a nervous whisper through the crowd. Maddie slipped into a group that had gathered and was standing nearest to the platform, a simple wooden structure like a stage that was used for many occasions when the people came together. The coming meeting to discuss the proposal to close village would be held here too, and Leader would stand on the stage to direct things and keep them orderly. Now remember who Leader is. Leader is Jonas from The Giver. Okay. So a large wooden roof covered the area so that rain would not prevent a gathering, and in the cold months the enclosing sides would be slid into place. Tonight, though, With the warm with the weather still warm, it was open to the evening. A breeze ruffled Maddie's hair. He could smell the scent of the pine grove that bordered the area. He found a place to stand next to Mentor, hoping that perhaps Jean would join her father, though she was nowhere to be seen. Mentor glanced down and smiled at him. "Maddie," he said, "it's a surprise to see you here. You've never been before." Hey, Katie. "No," Maddie said, "I have nothing to trade." The schoolteacher put his arm affectionately over Maddie's shoulders, and Maddie noticed for the first time that the teacher had lost weight. "Ah," Mentor said, "you'd be surprised. Everyone has something to trade." Okay, so remember Mentor was acting kind of skittish the other day when Maddie was at his house, and Maddie thought something was up, but he looked around and didn't see that anything was really out of place, so he's confused about what's going on. But I think that Mentor has something to hide. Okay, so page 64. "Jean has her flowers," Maddie said, hoping to turn the conversation to Mentor's daughter, "but she takes them to the market stall. She doesn't need Trademark for that. And," he added, "she already promised the puppy to me. She better not trade him away." Because remember, the teacher's daughter is giving Maddie one of the puppies that he saved. Mentor laughed. "No, the puppy is yours, Maddie, and the sooner the better. He is full of mischief, and he chewed my shoes just this morning." For a moment everything seemed as it always had been. The man was warm and cheerful, and the same loving teacher and father he had been for years. His arm over Maddie's shoulders was familiar, but Maddie found himself wondering suddenly why Mentor was there. Why, in fact, any of these people were here. None of them had brought any goods to trade. He looked around to confirm what he had noticed. People stood tensely, their arms folded or at their sides. Some of them were murmuring to one another. Maddie noticed the young couple, who were neighbors down the road from the house he shared with the blind man. They were conversing in low voices, perhaps arguing, and the young wife appeared worried about what her husband was saying. But their arms, too, like Maddie's, like Mentor's, like everyone's, were empty. No one had brought anything to trade. A silence fell, and the crowd parted to make way for a tall, dark-haired man who was now striding towards the stage, page 65. He was called the Trade Master. People said that he had come, already named, as a new one some years before, and had brought with him what he knew about trading from the place he had left. Maddie had often seen him around the village and knew that he was in charge of Trade Mart and that he checked on things after stopping at houses where trades had been made. He had come to Raymond's after his parents acquired the gaming machine. Tonight he carried nothing but a thick book that Maddie had never seen before. Mentor's arms fell from Maddie's shoulders, and the school teacher's attention turned eagerly towards the stage, where Trademaster was now standing. "Trade Mart begins," Trademaster called. He had a loud voice with a slight accent, as many in the village had, the traces of their former languages lingering with them. The crowd fell absolutely silent now. Even the slightest whispering ceased. But over on the edge, Maddie heard a woman begin to weep. He stood on tiptoe and peered toward her in time to see several people lead her away. Mentor did not even look toward the commotion of the weeping woman. Maddie watched him. He noticed suddenly that Mentor's face looked slightly different. He could not identify what the difference was. The evening light was dim. Page 66. More than that, the teacher, usually so calm, was now tense, alert, and appeared to be waiting for something. "Who first?" Trademaster called. And while Maddie watched, Mentor raised his hand and waved it frantically like a schoolboy hoping for a reward. "Me! Me!" the schoolteacher called out in a demanding voice, and as Maddie watched, Mentor shoved people standing in front of him aside so that he would be noticed. Something's up with him. Late that night, the blind man listened with a concerned look on his face while Maddie described Trade Mart, so Maddie's back home telling Seer about what happened that day. Mentor's first because he raised his hand so fast, and he completely forgot me, Seer. He had been standing with me and we were talking just as we always have. Then, when they started, as if I didn't exist, he pushed ahead of everyone and went first. "What do you mean, went first? Where did he go?" "To the stage. He pushed through everyone. He shoved and jostled them around, Seer. It was so odd. Then he went to the stage when Trademaster called his name. The blind man rocked back and forth in his chair. Tonight he had not played music at all. Maddie knew he was distressed. Page 67. It used to be different. People just called out. There was a lot of laughter and teasing the time I went. No laughter tonight, Seer. Just silence, as if people were very nervous. It was a little scary. And what happened when Mentor got to stage? Maddie thought. It had been a little difficult to see through the crowd. He just stood there. Then Trademaster asked him something, but it was as if he already knew the answer. And then everyone laughed a bit, as if they did too, but it wasn't a having fun kind of laughter. It was a knowing kind. Could you hear what he asked? I couldn't hear that first time, but I know it was because he asked it of everyone who came up. It was the same each time, just 3 words. Trade for what? That's what he asked each time. And was the answer the same for everyone? Matty shook his head, then remembered that he had to reply aloud. No, he said, it was different. Could you hear Mentor's reply? Yes, it made everyone laugh in an odd way, Mentor said, same as before. The blind man frowned. Did you get a feel for what that meant? I don't think so, because everyone looked at the stocktender's widow and she blushed. She was near me, so I could see it. Her friends poked at her, teasing, and I heard her say, he needs a few more trades first. This is page 68. Then what happened? Matty tried to remember the sequence of things. Trademaster seemed to say yes, or at least to nod his head, and then he opened his book and wrote in it. I'd like to see that book, the blind man said, and then laughing at himself added, or have you see it and then read it to me. What came next? Mentor stood there. He seemed relieved that Trademaster had written something down for him. How could you tell? He smiled and seemed less nervous. Then what? Then everyone got very silent and Trademaster asked, Trade away what? The blind man thought, another 3 words. Was it the same for each? The same trade for what and then trade away what? Yes, but each one said the answer to the first quite loudly, the way Mentor did, but they whispered the answer to the second so no one could hear. So it became public what they're trading for? Yes, and sometimes the crowd called out in a scornful way. They jeered, I think that's the right word. And he wrote each down? No. Raymond's mother went up, and then Trademaster asked, trade for what? And she said, fur jacket. But Trademaster said no. Did he give a reason for the no? He said she got a gaming machine already. Maybe another time, he said. Keep trying, he told her. Yeah, Raymond's family has expensive taste. The blind man stirred restlessly in his chair. Make us some tea, Matty, would you? Matty did so, going to the wood stove where the iron kettle was already simmering. He poured the water over tea leaves into 2 thick mugs and gave one to Seer. Tell me again this second 3-word thing, the blind man said after he had taken a sip. Matty repeated it. Trade away what? He tried to make his voice loud and important as Trademaster's had been. He tried to imitate the slight accent. But you couldn't hear any of the answers that people gave, is that right? That's right. They whispered, and he wrote their whispers in his book. Page 70. Matty straightened his chair with a sudden idea. How about I steal the book and read you what it says? Matty. Sorry, Matty replied immediately. Stealing had been so much a part of his previous existence that he sometimes still, even after years, forgot that it was not acceptable behavior in village. Because I remember when he was a kid and he would steal, because he lived in that rough part of town in Gathering Blue. Well, said the blind man after they sipped their tea in silence for a moment, I wish I could figure out what things people are trading away. You say they came empty-handed, yet each one whispered something that was written down? Except for Raymond's mother, Matty reminded him. Trademaster said no to her. But others got their trades. Mentor got his. But we don't know what. No, same as before. He asked for. Tell me this, Matty. When Mentor left the trade mart, he hadn't been given anything, had he? He wasn't carrying anything? No, nothing. Was anyone given anything to take away? Some were told delivery times. Someone got a gaming machine. I'd really like a gaming machine, Seer, Matty added, though he knew that it was hopeless. But the blind man paid no attention to that. One more question for you, Matty. Think hard about this. All right, Matty prepared himself to think hard. Try to remember if people looked different when it was over. Not everyone, but those who had made some trades. Matty sighed. It had been crowded and long, and he had begun to be uncomfortable and tired by the time it had ended. He had seen Raymond and waved, but Raymond was standing with his mother, who was angry about having been turned down by the trade master. Raymond hadn't waved back. He had looked for Jean, but she wasn't there. I can't remember. I wasn't paying attention by the end. What about the person who got the gaming machine? You told me someone did. Who was it? The woman who lives near the marketplace. You know the one. Her husband walks hunched over because he has a twisted back. He was with her, but he didn't go up for a trade. Yeah, I know who you mean. They're a nice family, the blind man said. So she traded for a gaming machine. Did you see her when she was leaving? I think so. This is page 72. I think so. She was with some other woman, and they were laughing as they walked away. I thought you said she was with her husband. She was, but he walked behind. How did she seem? Happy because she got a gaming machine. She was telling her friends that they could come play with it. But anything else? Was there anything else about her that you remember? From after the trade, not before? Matty shrugged. He was beginning to be bored by the questioning. He was thinking about Jean, and that he might go to see her in the morning. Maybe his puppy would be ready. At least the puppy would be an excuse for a visit. It was healthy now and growing fast, with big feet and ears. Recently he had watched, laughing, when the mother dog had growled at it because it was nipping at her own ears in play. Thinking of the puppy's behavior reminded Matty of something. Something was different, he said. She's a nice woman, the one who got the gaming machine. Yes, she is. Gentle, cheerful, very loving to her husband. Well, said Matty slowly, when she was leaving, walking and talking to the other women, her husband behind trying to keep up, she whirled around and suddenly scolded him for being slow. Slow? But he's all twisted. He can't walk any other way, the blind man said in surprise. I know, but she made a sneering face at him, and she imitated his way of walking. She made fun of him. It was only for a second, though. Sear was silent, rocking. Matty picked up the empty mugs, took them to the sink, and rinsed them. It's late, the blind man said. Time to go to bed. He rose from his chair and put his stringed instrument on the shelf where he kept it. He began to walk slowly to his sleeping room. Good night, Matty, he said. Then he said something else, almost to himself. So now she has a gaming machine, the blind man murmured. His voice sounded scornful. Matty, at the sink, remembered something. Mentor's birthmark is completely gone, he said to Seer. Okay. So, that's chapter 7. Chapter 8 we will read next week, but it seems like this nice little village is now kind of turning mean, where they once were helping each other out. They're making trades for luxuries like gaming machines and fur coats, and they're giving up their kind hearts to do this. So that's kind of the impression I got from that. I can't wait to read chapter 9. So on Friday, as I told you, you can read this chapter 7 by listening to me read it, or you can read it on your own. But Friday is when your quiz for chapter 7, when I'll do the read aloud. It's already in your binder, but I'll read all the questions and answer options aloud to you on Friday. So I love y'all. That was a good chapter, and I will talk to you later. All right.